All right. So spacers or bud spacing. So I'm gonna come down here. I'm gonna look inside here. I don't wanna see any daylight, so come down this way. I don't want to see any daylight between these two rims right here. I want to make sure that the tires are evenly spaced right here. And these tires are not rubbing or touching. And there's no debris to cause any damage, such as a rock or a nail. The bud spacing down here is securely mounted. So now I'm going to do the springs, shocks, and airbags. So I recommend that you step over this way. I'll come over here and look at it right here. So I'm going to point at the spring up here. I'm going to touch the shock right here and the airbag right here. I'll say the springs right here, they're straight, they're not scissoring because there's two of them, none are missing. They're not rusted through at all, they're not cracked, bent, or dented. There's no missing nuts or bolts. The spring is securely mounted. The shock is straight. There's no missing nuts or bolts up here. There's no loose or missing bushings up here or down there. It's also not cracked or leaking at all. The shock is securely mounted. The airbags right here, I also have one on that side. I want to make sure they're both evenly inflated. One's not under or overinflated. Also, the airline supplying them, they're connected, they're not loose, cracked, or leaking at all. The spring mounts, I have a spring mount up there in the front, and I have an airbag mount right here and a spring mount down there. The spring mount up there, it's not cracked, bent, or dented, it's not loose, there's no missing nuts or bolts at all, it's also not rusted through at all. The airbag mount right here and also down there, it's not cracked, bent, or dented, there's no missing nuts or bolts, there's no gaps up here at all or shiny exposed threads. The airbag mount up here and down there is securely mounted. My U-bolts, I have two of them. I have a U-bolt right there and right there. Those U-bolts, they're not loose or missing at all. They're not cracked, bent, or dented at all. There's no missing nuts down below or shiny exposed threads. The U-bolt there and there are securely mounted. So then I'll go to the front brake. So you go over this way. So brake hoses are lines right there. So I'm going to come over here and say these two brake hoses right here and the ABS line is right here. It goes down to here. So these two brake hoses right here, they're not loose at all. There's no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. They're not cracked or leaking at all. This ABS line is not loose at all. It's securely tied up here. There's no corroded, exposed, or cut wires at all. The ABS line and brake hoses are securely mounted. The brake chamber right here, I have this front piece, the back piece, and the C-clamp right here. The C-clamp is not loose or missing. I don't have any gaps between the brake chamber end at all. They're not cracked, bent, or dented, or leaking at all. I'm going to listen for air leaks right here. There's no missing nuts or bolts. The brake chamber is securely mounted. My slack adjuster is right here. My push rod's down here. The slack adjuster right here is not loose at all. It's not cracked, bent, or dented. It's also properly greased down here. This push rod goes inside the brake chamber right here. For me to check this push rod though, I'm going to have to block or chock these tires. I'm going to go up inside the cab and release the yellow brake or the yellow valve or the parking brake. Then I'll come back here and I'll pull those by hand. There should be no more than 1 inch of plate. It should be even on both sides. Also, there's no missing pins or cotter keys at the push rod at all. The push rod and slack adjuster are securely mounted. So drums and linings. Well, you stay right over there. I'll come over here. I'm going to inspect the outside of the drum right here to make sure it's not cracked, bent, or dented at all. It's also not warped at all. Also, then I'm going to look inside this inspection hole right here to make sure it's not cracked inside there. There's no discoloration or any sign that it's been overheating at all. Also, it's dry inside the brake drum. There's no oil or grease on inside the brake drum. The brake lining itself, it's not worn too thin. It's at least 1/4 inch thick, evenly worn all the way around. None of it's loose or missing at all. They too are dry, no oil or grease. The brake lining and drum are securely mounted. Come back this way. So then the rear of the vehicle, splash guards. I have a splash guard here and here. They're properly elevated off the ground. They're not dragging on the ground. They're at least 6 to 9 inches off the ground. There's no missing bolts up here. They're not torn, cracked, loose, or missing. This bracket right here is not cracked, bent, or dented at all. The splash guard here and here are securely mounted. Lights and reflectors. I have DOT approved tape down here and right here and up on the glass there. The DOT approved tape is clean, clear. None of it's loose or peeling. It's not obstructed. It's securely mounted here, here, and up there. The light right here and the light right here is also clean, clear, not cracked. There's no loose or hanging wires or missing screws at all. They're all securely mounted in proper color red.